What's going on, guys? Today I'm back with another H.A.T format replay review for you guys. If you're interested in sending in your H.A.T format replays, you can go down to the video description and find all the information on how to go about sending those in. Anyways, the match I have for you today, we have Traptrix 2K10, who is going to be on Evo Traptrix, versus Odyssey Icaros, who is going to be on Gravekeeper Artifact Hands. So this should be a very interesting matchup, so let's get straight into it. Here, we will see Traptrix 2K10 win the rock, paper, scissors and get to start this one out. Opening hands, we see Mermail, Volcanoes, Singularity, Breakthrough Skill, and Kagado Kage. And on the other side, we see Solemn Warning, Pot of Duality, Recruiter, Spy, and Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare. So honestly, pretty alright hands from both players. And here, Prop will get a draw for turn after a little bit of talking back and forth between players. And they draw into a copy of Wiretap. So definitely a good card to see when going first rather than second. But let's see how they choose to play this one out. Here, they are going to summon the Volcano and use the Kagado Kage here to special summon, in which case they can go for a Lavavol Chain, detaching the Volcano and sending a copy of Najasho here. The reason they do that is to get Evo Singularity live, since they are going to need an Evolatile and a Evolusaur in Graveyard in order to basically just get a free Evo Xyz monster. So really strong there. Obviously they can go for something like Logia or Dalka, or even in a lot of cases they can go for the big rank 6. I'm forgetting its name. I think it's Solda, if I'm remembering correctly. And so they'll be able to have that backed up with something like a Breakthrough Skill and Wiretap, which is very strong. I guess the other argument is you could have technically gone for like a Mermail and get a Trap Hole or something, but I feel like getting the Singularity live as quickly as possible is also just a very solid move here. And after that, they're going to set 3 back row and over to Odyssey, who gets a copy of Firehand, which is very strong. And here it looks like Prop is actually thinking, and they are going to fire that Singularity right away, going for, obviously the 2 Evo monsters and going into a copy of Logia. So very strong, basically a Solemn Warning, but the Firehand does kind of eat that right away. So here Prop is going to think for a second, and they're just clarifying some ruling stuff. Firehand is going to attack into the Lavavol Chain here, and it's going to die. Here Firehand is going to pop the Logia, and then they're going to be able to summon a copy of Ice Hand, which they can crash into the Lavavol Chain again, popping a back row. Here we really see the hands, how they can just clear through boards, going and popping that copy of Breakthrough Skill, summoning a copy of Firehand, again attacking in, it gets destroyed, popping the Lavavol Chain, and now they can attack directly with the Ice Hand. The hands are just so strong. Obviously, what people might be thinking is, oh, they could just, use the Logia on the normal summon of the Firehand or something. But, if that is the case, it's going to trigger the Firehand regardless. So that's just something to keep in mind, because the hands are cards that say in your possession. So that tends to, trip people up a little bit, but that is something clear to note. So now anyways, Icaros is going into main phase 2 and setting some back row, and back over to Prop, who gets a copy of Diplo. Not really the greatest draw here, and they're going to take a second to think. They're just going to set 1. Obviously, if the opponent knows about Evos, they might be tricking them into thinking this is something like a Westlow or something along those lines. Either way, it looks like Icaros drew another Recruiter for turn. They are going to switch the Ice Hand to defense and set the copy of Spy back over to Prop, who now gets a copy of the Westlow. So, they can go and normal summon that Mermail, but that is going to eat the copy of Warning. But as I mentioned at the beginning, Prop having that copy of Wiretap is very strong. Shuffling back the Warning and getting a copy of Bottomless here is good. And now they can flip up the Diplo, overlay into an Exciton. Obviously, Icaros is up in card advantage, but here that copy of Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare will be activated, and it's not looking good for Prop here, who is just going to pass here. Odyssey gets a copy of Firehand, flips up the Spy, and they summon a copy of Recruiter, normal summon a copy of Recruiter, and just swing in for massive damage here. and just kind of showing again how good those hands are, and now showing how the Gravekeeper aspect can really apply a lot of pressure. Obviously, if these recruiters get destroyed, they'll be able to add cards. And anyways, here Odyssey is going to go for a copy of 101 just as a defensive measure. Now, they did summon it in attack position, which is a little interesting. It doesn't really matter too much here, I would say, in most cases, especially given, Prop just drew a copy of Soul Charge, but they are low on life. In some cases, it would matter, because if Prop was able to get into a 101 and take this, then it's not good for it to be an attack. But at the same time, in this exact scenario, if they're wasting all their resources to make a 101, you probably don't care, especially, looking at Icaros's hand, having another fire hand, having these recruiters that, just apply a lot of pressure in their own way. I don't think they really care here. But anyways, let's see what Prop is going to do. They're just going to set one and set the Westlow over to Odyssey, who gets a copy of Moral Attack and just goes to battle phase attacking into that Westlow, which is going to summon a copy of Volcano, and then Volcano can summon the Diplo from Graveyard because it was special summoned via an volatile monster effect. And here the Westlow gets destroyed still, and they are going to crash the Recruiter into the Volcano, adding a copy of Commandant. Main phase 2, discarding Commandant to add a copy of Necro Valley, activating Duality because nothing was special this turn, revealing a Sanctum, Beagle Tech, and Ignition, so all very strong reveals here. Taking the copy of Sanctum and putting the other two back. And I'm sure we're going to see the Necro Valley activated along with setting that Sanctum, but here the 101 can use its effect, taking the special summon Diplo, and Odyssey walks with that one pretty convincingly too. Here, moving into game number 2, Prop is going to start this one out yet again. Opening hands, we see Traptrix, Trap-Hole Nightmare, Diplo, Duality, Mind Control, and Evo Diversity. On the other side, we see Duality, Bottomless, Wiretap, Recruiter, and Firehand. So again, it seems like Icaros does just generically have the better hand, but Prop does get a draw here, getting a Wiretap again as the draw, and this time having the Evo Diversity and Duality is very strong because it means they can kind of get into their starters right away. And here they're going to go Diversity, getting a copy of Westlow, which now kind of turns on the mind games a little, activating Duality, and taking another copy of Diversity, though it is a hard once per turn, putting back the Torrential and Evo Force. After that, they're going to set Westlow, set 3 back row, and over to Icaros, who gets a copy of Ice Hand. Now let's see how he chooses to go about it this time, obviously not being able to go for such a dominant hands play this time. So here they are going to go for Duality, revealing 3 pretty decent ones, taking the copy of Commandant and putting back Recruiter and Spy. So now they do have access to the Necro Valley, which is really good, setting the copy of Ice Hand and 2 back row, and back over to Propgers, who gets a copy of Torrential, which let me just double check that they shuffled the deck, given that was revealed off of the copy of Duality last time. Let me just double check that, because that would be pretty big here. They went for Duality set. Did they? Oh, they did shuffle. Okay. So just wanted to double check. Sometimes there have been times where people just forget because they kind of, sometimes when you search certain things or use certain effects, the simulator somewhat kind of shuffles for you, though most of the time it is manual. But anyways, moving along here, they are going to flip up the Westlow and summon a copy of Diplo. Diplo pops a back row here, so they are going to go after that copy of Necro Valley. And from here, the set Mind Control can actually take that copy of Ice Hand, which is very, very strong here, allowing Prop to go into a rank 4, going into a copy of King of the Feral Imps, but that is going to be met with Bottomless. But here is that Wiretap again. So Prop really showing off the ability of Wiretap, but oh, I almost forgot, Icaros had a Wiretap of their own. So here, resolving this chain, the Wiretap will get shuffled back into Prop's deck, and then the King of the Feral Imps will get banished. So really nice interaction there, and here Evo Diversity can activate, getting Prop another copy of Westlow. And they're going to go to battle phase and just attack here. After that, it looks like they are going to set Westlow. I know some builds of Evo will play the Fire Fist Lion Emperor, which in some cases you'd be able to just normal summon another copy of Westlow, overlay into, and then get a, I believe it's a fire monster from Graveback. Here they wouldn't really want the Diplo, but that is always kind of an option if they really needed to. But anyways, here it looks like they're just going to pass over here. Odyssey gets a copy of Crossout, which is really, really good. Knock is always just a great card. Here they're going to summon the Recruiter first, obviously doing this just to try to bait out some back row or something, whereas if you lead with the copy of Knock, then sometimes that can make the opponent play their cards slightly different here. Going to battle phase and just running over that copy of Westlow, main phase 2, activating the copy of Knock and banishing that Westlow, and here the other part of Nobleman is going to activate, banishing the other copy of Westlow from deck, and over to Propkers, who gets a copy of Serato, which they can summon just as a beater here, and here Recruiter will get a copy of Commandant, so, you know, now Odyssey does have access to Necro Valley again, and they have Firehand, which is really good, and looking at this back row, the Torrential could probably check the Firehand if they choose to go for that, but there is also the option of just activating the Necro Valley and then setting Firehand, making so Prop has to kind of play into it versus just having the easy answer to it in Torrential. But anyways, over to Odyssey, who now gets a copy of Mortal Attack. We haven't really seen too much of the artifact engine, honestly, but here discarding that Commandant, getting a copy of Necro Valley, summoning that copy of Firehand, and here we do see that Torrential I mentioned. Prop is going to draw for turn, getting a Najasho, summon Diplo, and just beat down with the Diplo. You know, it might work. Here, Odyssey, though, gets a copy of Ignition, which is like the perfect draw with that copy of Moral Attack in hand. Sets both. Over to Prop, who gets a copy of Evo Force. They are going to attack in with Diplo, which procs Icaros to activate the Ignition, setting a Moral Attack, and then summoning the Moral Attack from Graveyard, which can pop the Diplo, but the Traptrix Trapple Nightmare is going to check that, destroying that, and still attacking in, and then main phase 2, now Prop does have access to the Najasho Evo Force play, which will give them a lot of advantage here, and they are going to go for it. So summoning Najasho, tributing Evo Force, summoning Volcano, and then Volcano will be summoned off of the Najasho, and overlaying into a copy of Dulka. Again, keep in mind Necro Valley is on the field, so they couldn't use the one copy of Volcano anyways. I believe one will miss timing or something, and then the other, just in general, wouldn't be able to activate. But here, going for a copy of Dulka, just since they know that this is a moral attack, but also just because there's hands and a lot of other relevant things here. So here, passing it over, Icaros gets a copy of Sanctum, which is good, but they can set it, and here Prop just attacking in with both. The Sanctum activates, maybe no effect on Moral Attack, which it looks like they're not going to, and Prop just swings over both regardless, sets that copy of Breakthrough Skill, and over to Odyssey, who gets a Beagle Tech, and they are going to scoop it up. So here we are going into a game number 3. This time Icaros will be able to start this one out. Opening hands, we see MST, Mind Control, Najasho, Singularity, and Wiretap. Really curious how many Wiretaps Prop is on, given we keep seeing it. And on the other side, we see Spy, Necro Valley, Commandant, Ice Hand, and another Wiretap on the other side as well. And here, Icaros does get a draw for turn. Getting a copy of Sanctum is extremely strong given the rest of their hand. So let's see how he chooses to play this one out. They are going to activate Necro Valley, setting the Spy, and then 2 back row. So choosing to hold the Commandant just in case here, in case they do need another monster or something along those lines, and just passing it over to Prop here, who gets a copy of Evo Force. Again, just a great card whenever the Najasho is live, but given there is that Sanctum, that might kind of take away from it, and Prop does have the MST, so maybe they could go after one of these back row just sort of blind, unless they care more about the Necro Valley. They could also just save it for who knows when. They also have the Mind Control, which is really strong to take this copy of Spy if need be, and let's see what they do here. They are going to set the Najasho, activate Evo Force, and this does work. It's kind of weird, but a lot of people forget that, you know, the Volatiles are still considered Evo monsters for the Evo Force, even when set. It's one of those just weird things. But here, tributing off that Najasho to summon a copy of Diplo, and then off the Najasho, they are going to summon another Diplo, and here the Diplo is going to pop a copy of Necro Valley. Now, they do have the MST, which they could go for, but here it looks like Odyssey on resolution is going to activate that copy of Sanctum. Do they play Scythe? No, but they do have the Moral Attack to just pop one of the Diplos. After that, Mind Control is going to activate, and it is that copy of Spy, so they can still go for a rank 4 here, going for a copy of 101, and just attack attacking into it and detaching a material to protect itself. Obviously playing around Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare here. They didn't see it, but they saw it last game. So a very good play there from Prop, who can then set 3 back row, trying to see if this is some sort of relevant back row. And obviously, I guess you don't want to be MSTing blindly into a artifact deck unless, you know, you strategically play it out. Here, passing it over, Icaros gets a copy of Nobleman, which isn't the best draw in this exact situation, but here it looks like in draw phase, MST is going to be able to be activated, getting rid of that. Now, in this case, it is better because if it were to be an artifact, it is Icaros' turn, so it wouldn't be able to trigger here. And then in standby, Singularity is going to activate summoning Najasho and Diplo and overlaying into a copy of Dolka here. So now this is shutting down this ice hand here. And over to Prop, who gets a copy of Westlow. Great draw, going to battle phase and just attacking in. Icaros is playing it very cautiously. Here, main phase 2 setting the Westlow, and Icaros gets a copy of Beagle Tack. They're going to activate the cross out, and here Prop has to banish the other one, setting the ice hand, and another back row here. Prop gets a copy of cross out of their own, and Icaros is just going to scoop it up there. So honestly, a bit surprising to actually see Propkers take down the Gravekeeper deck with Evos. But again, really, really cool deck. Always great to see both of these players in these replays, as they're always very entertaining matches. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like on it, comment any questions or videos you want to see in the future, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell to get notified anytime I put a new video out, share this video with your friends, and don't forget to go down to the video description to find out how you can send in your hat format replays, whether you won or lost. If you thought the deck you or your opponent was playing was pretty cool, feel free to send it in. I'm sure a lot of people would love to see it. But anyways, guys, I will see you in the next video.